these days things have been exceptionally busy at WHO, and with all the lockdown and everything else, but we are trying to achieve everything through Zoom, and that's just taking its own toll. So unfortunately, I have only this hour to spend with you on this issue. Sudipto, it might help if you just tell me what you want. I have a short presentation,
Right.
but would you like to have a more of a discussion after that? What is the expectation?
Yes, sir. So we would like, a short presentation as you have shared, and after that we would like a discussion with all our, panelists as well as participants also. Yes, we would like that.
Okay, great. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let me start with a small presentation that some of you may already have seen some parts of it. I may have, I've spoken about this before. I'm sorry, I have to share my screen. One moment.
Sure, sir.
Yes. When you start seeing my screen, please let me know.
Okay. Yes, we can see your presentation. Please.
Okay, so we are going to spend some time talking about implementation research. And this is an area of research that is relatively, I would say, new. Uh, I like to think about it like where randomized controlled trials were in 1960s and 70s. We are there for implementation research today, or where we were with cluster randomized trials in 1980s. We are at the same place for implementation research, in the sense that there is a lot of interest, but there is also a lot of confusion and difficulties about thinking about what to do, what does it mean, how to do it, etc. So I think that is the basic reason why this topic has been chosen by Prerna. So, in terms of implementation research as it is defined, so-called defined, I don't know if there is a clear definition, but in some of the WHO documents, particularly done by the implementation research platform in WHO, of which the Tropical Disease Research Department, the Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research, our Department of MCA, and the Department for Reproductive Health and Research, or APART, has defined implementation research objective. Why we are thinking of implementation research, or why we are doing it. It is to improve access to effective healthcare interventions by developing practical solutions to common but critical problems in delivery of these interventions. Now, these words have been carefully chosen to say that we have already shown that the healthcare intervention is effective. So implementation research is not to know whether the intervention is effective or not. If you don't know whether the intervention is effective or not, you should do efficacy research. You should do effectiveness research. You shouldn't do implementation research on that necessarily. So implementation research is more to do with the delivery or implementation of effective interventions, trying to solve the problems of in implementation. So that should always be in your mind when you think about implementation. At least it's in my mind when I think about implementation research. I don't want to do implementation research on something that I am unsure about its efficacy, or even if I'm unsure about its effectiveness, which means its efficacy in real life situations. So the WHO definition, as I said, kind of goes on to saying that there are three components of implementation research. One is to identify what are the common implementation problems and their determinants. Why do we have these problems? Which prevent effective access to healthcare or to effective health interventions. So this is simply understanding the problems, the challenges, the difficulties in implementation. Part two is to develop practical solutions to these problems. So somehow you go through a process to get to some solutions that might solve these problems and test whether the new implementation strategy, now we are not talking about a new implementation, but we are talking about a new implementation strategy based on these solutions can significantly improve access to healthcare. So first part is know what the problem is. What are we trying to resolve? What are the problems in implementation? The second step is have develop practical solutions. So it is not that it comes straight to your mind that I think this might work, so I test it out. You need to have a process to develop a solution to the implementation problem. And you need to engage the people who have been involved with implementation or are at the receiving end of the implementation to understand what those potential solutions may be. But then you have to use research methods to test whether those new implementation strategies can improve or can solve the implementation problems. Then the last part of it, most of the research IR is done with those first two objectives. But there is a third part of the definition of IR, which is to say to introduce these implementation strategies or these new implementation strategies into programs and facilitate their full scale implementation and to evaluate them and modify them as required. So two steps in this. One is when you develop a solution, you may develop it still at a smaller scale and test it at a smaller scale, say within a sub-district or within a district. But then the third step is to introduce it wider and full-scale implementation in the program and then evaluate it. Usually people don't have the resources or the energy to go to that third step. But and I have seen so many papers published only with step one. What are the implementation problems? It's important in its own right, but that's not the full scope of implementation research. Next slide, please. Oh, I am the one who's moving. Okay, so research question. So very importantly, for any research, we have, said, several of us have been saying it, you have learned it 100 times, and we say it all the time, that the first step is to ask the right question. If your question is not correct, then maybe your answer or your research methods or your analysis plan or anything else that follows will also not be that great. So how do I test myself whether I am actually asking the right question? I, for one, like to start the question with a how. If my question starts with what, it probably is not implementation research. If my question starts with a how, I'm more likely to ask the right implementation research question. For example, I've given a how question. How can implementation barriers to scaling up be overcome so that we can achieve something else, which is a program objective or which is to achieve high coverage of something or high coverage and quality of an intervention or of a package of interventions. So if you start with how, I think you have a better chance of asking a right implementation research question. If your question looks like what, then probably you will not go towards a implementation research, appropriate implementation research methods, because either then you are testing something else, the efficacy or effectiveness, or you already have something fixed in your mind and you want to just say, what is the efficacy of this or what is the coverage that I can achieve from this? If you ask with how can I do it, the answer should be this is how you should do it. It has nothing to do with X% people got intervention. So if I ask my question, how should I scale up? My answer should be, this is how you should scale up. And you should tell me, this is how is ABC. This is how you can scale up. But most of the times we are unable to answer that question. If we don't ask the right question, you can't answer it. So I would define what are the objectives, what are the things that you want. The program wants to achieve something, but the barriers are in implementation. So I need the program objectives. I need the health systems diagnosis. So what are those implementation barriers that are stopping me from reaching the objectives? And then if I have to say how to do it, I have to have a method to go get to how to do it. And one possibility is an iterative design and implementation of the health system, the diagnosis you have made on the health system, you try to resolve it and then see does it help solving the problem. If it doesn't work, you change it, you dissolve it again, you find something else to make that problem go away, and you keep doing that in an iterative manner until you achieve, and sorry, it should be parameter. So until you achieve the program objective. But what you use research for is to understand or diagnose the implementation barrier, but also while iterating to find the proper solution, you are using your quantitative and qualitative research methods to go towards your program objective. So, in other words, how is it different from effectiveness research? So, effectiveness research, you have a health intervention, you want to know what is its impact on mortality and morbidity within a routine health system setting. That's what I would call effectiveness research. And you, of course, will have to also optimize how to deliver it. If you don't know how to deliver it, you may not be able to get anything. So even in effectiveness research, there is some element of optimization, and usually you do some process evaluation for that. You describe how interventions were implemented, what is their cost, what is the coverage of the intervention, what is the quality of the intervention, and then you measure. But in implementation research, you are doing something slightly different. And just the same things I have been speaking about, but in a more simplified format, that strategies that address implementation problems and allow scale up. And you want to achieve high coverage and quality, for example, of health interventions. And the research outputs are the how to do it. So it's a implementation model, for example. That is, this is how you should do it. What are the inputs required? What are the costs required? That's the output of the research, not the coverage alone, but what it took to achieve those uh, programmatic objectives. Also, the outputs could be process itself. How did you get there? Or the tools that you used, which can be used in future scaling up. So for me, that is slightly different way of thinking about implementation research than research outputs here, which is simply measurement of mortality and morbidity and showing that the intervention is effective. So this is another conceptual diagram that I have used often in the past 5 years to think about how to do implementation research on a difficult problem. And you will hear an example from maybe tomorrow. I think Sharmila will tell you about kangaroo mother care as an example. I'm not going to go into any example. I'm just, it could be anything. It could be any implementation. It could be implementation of steroids for antenatal steroids for preterm birth, or it could be a package of interventions that you want to deliver for newborn and child health or for maternal health, intrapartum care. Could be anything. So usually above that blue line on the screen, on this slide, I have two things. Usually obviously there is some government policy. So unless there is this government policy and some implementation happening, we don't know what are the problems in implementation. So nobody has implemented it. The program has not implemented something. I don't know what implementation research to do. Usually there will be some policy of the government. and there will be some existing implementation strategy. And usually it would be decided in Nirman Bhavan, in one of those meetings in a meeting room, that how should it be implemented. Okay, ANMs will do this, Anganwadi workers will do that, X worker will, PHCs will do this, district hospitals will do that. So there is usually an implementation strategy, which we usually call government documents for implementation guidance, or simply policy documents, or simply guidance documents. But they exist. But largely they are based on consensus. They are hardly, if ever, based on hard evidence of through implementation research. They are usually based in consensus. Usually, I'm not saying always, but usually. So if you are in that situation and you have an implementation strategy, but it's not going anywhere, it's not being implemented anywhere. Take the PSBI example, or possible serious bacterial infection for neonates. It's in government policy now for more than 10 years that ANMs will give injection gentamicin and I think they say not cotrimoxazole, amoxicillin and injection gentamicin. However, in practice, nobody does it. No ANM is doing it. You are not getting that done. So there is a policy, there is a strategy, but nothing is happening. So if you pick up that problem to solve it through implementation research, you may start with some formative work. You may want to start with some formative research to understand the problem. As I said, what are the implementation barriers? What are the opportunities that you have? So you start with something, that there is something being implemented. I want to find out what the problems are, what are the possible uh, challenges, but what are the possible ways of moving forward. And you somehow use that initial research, which could be done relatively quickly, to develop a better model of implementation, maybe slightly better. I'm just calling it 0+. So you may just do, I've just put 3 to 6 months as a, so don't do I wouldn't do implementation research for 2 years. Oh, sorry, formative research for 2 years on something. I would do something short but nice, some good qualitative research to understand, maybe even quantitative, to understand the problems, and then to develop a maybe slightly better model that has more chance of success. However, what I have proposed here is, when you develop it, don't get into saying, I want to now do a cluster randomized trial, or I want to do a stepwise trial to now see what is the impact of this on mortality. I would say you implement it with three things happening as you implement it. A, there is always going to be some implementation support that will have to be provided to the program. Because if the program has to make the changes that you have suggested, somebody has to provide that support for the program to make the changes. And while you are doing the implementation, or while the government is doing the implementation, people will learn what are the problems, even in implementing the small things that you wanted to change in the implementation strategy, and you find solutions, ongoing solutions of these small problems. The important part is it has to be led by the government and not by only the researchers. Because if they decide to implement something, it has more chances of being done and it's more chances of being sustainable. But there are two roles of researchers while this process of implementation is happening. And we are saying concurrently, you do a something called program learning. So you concurrently do qualitative research and collect data, which answers the question why something that is working, why the changes you have made are working, or why the changes you have made are not working. Why are they not acceptable to the population? Why are they not acceptable to the health workforce? Why are they not acceptable to the managers? Or are they really acceptable? Then great. Then that's positive feedback. So this program learning provides the information and feedback to the process of implementation. And concurrent evaluation, largely with quantitative data, measures whatever you want to collect as your program objective data, whether it is safety, coverage, quality, even impact. But usually, impact is hard to measure in an ongoing way, but coverage and quality are easier to measure. That what I'm doing, is it having an effect? So the government program, which is changing itself, continuously gets feedback from the quantitative and qualitative data. And then periodically, they look at all the data, they look at this information, and they think again that is that model working? Is there big changes needed? Are there big issues still to be, which are not resolved? Implementation problems that we thought we could resolve, but we are not able to resolve. So they do these. I mean, this is again an example, so it's not that it has to be done like this. This is how we have done things for the past few years. That government-led redesign workshop where implementation support and program learning and evaluation data is put together in a meaningful way and discussed with all the stakeholders. And you develop a new model, maybe slightly different, or maybe with big differences, and you implement it again, and then you again go through the same process, and you keep doing it until you think you are going to reach, at least in this population, your objectives, which is your high coverage. Now, of course, it cannot be infinite. After even 2 or 3 or 4 rounds of doing it for a year, 2 years, you have not reached your level, highest level that you wanted. You may decide that this is the best we can do in implementation of this particular intervention. Something else needs to change. It is just not feasible to implement it in the way we are thinking. But usually you will see over a period of between, let's say, 1 to 2 years, you will reach some sort of a plateau, a peak, where you will say, we can implement it at least at this level. And that is what we are calling here an optimized model. An optimized model which is scalable because it has been discussed and decided by the government. And now this model can now be evaluated in a more formal way using a step wedge design or using a interrupted time series design to implement it, maybe even in a bigger population or a scalable population, which was the step 3 of implementation research. Next, please. So this is about, no, I'm the one. So I will conclude with a few messages. Implementation research should address the question of how, how to overcome implementation barriers to scale up, for example, high intervention coverage and quality. It is guided by program managers, people who are on the ground doing the program and it optimizes the implementation model. So the outcome is if a question is how do I do it, the answer is this is how you should do it. So this is how you should do it should be the main research output. Then there is evidence that yes, this works, but the main output is how you should do it. It generates outputs that program can use to implement the model at scale. Because that is what is important here. Not that you can publish the paper and say it is feasible to implement, but that you give somebody an idea of how to implement. You give the government or NGOs or others an idea of how to implement. So that is it that I wanted to say. It may not be something new or different, or it may be very different from what you were thinking. So my suggestion would be maybe a few questions and clarifications, but please feel free, those who have even more experience than me, and there are lots of people here, to share what you think are your ideas on this issue. So not only questions, but also very welcome to add comments. And this is a discussion, but I'm happy to answer, and other people can also answer questions. And I don't know all the panelists, so I'm sorry I came in just now. So maybe I'll let Sanjay or Sudipto, you know, to kind of facilitate this discussion.
Sure, sir. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv, very much for that very informative session on introduction to implementation research and where implementation research lies, in the continuum of research to program and its significance. So what we can do is we'll take in some questions from the participants first. We have some questions already. I can see we have questions here on the panel. And then I would request the panelists to also join in with some of the suggestions, their knowledge or their comments on these issues that Dr. Rajiv just spoke about. Okay, so Dr. Rajiv, I'll just read out some of the questions and maybe if you could then help to reply to those. Okay, so there is a question that suppose that if there is a vaccine which is ready for introduction in the community, how will implementation research help in the introduction of this vaccine?
So again, the question is, what is the problem? Without understanding the problem you are trying to solve, I wouldn't say how can implementation research help. First, we have to understand. So you have, let's say, a COVID vaccine today, right? Let's take this as I think people who are thinking about it have that in their mind. So we know that there will be a COVID vaccine, whether Bharat Biotech vaccine or Serum Institute or this AstraZeneca or whatever else is available now, right? Let's say it's licensed for use. And you decide, the government decides to implement it, right? So if you want to do it without any data, further data on implementation, where can you end up? You can end up where we were with polio. We started with polio eradication, but could achieve only 40% coverage, 50% coverage of pulse polio. And then we had to start thinking why people are not taking the vaccine, why the health system is not able to reach the unreached, etc., etc., etc. So if you want to cut that short, what you can try to do with your initial research, step one of implementation research is to try and understand what will be the implementation barriers. Now here, this is a situation where you don't have a running program, but you have a program of vaccination in the country. You have been doing vaccines for ages, for children, and for some of the pregnant women. But maybe we have never done a vaccine program for all population. I don't remember the last time we did it. Maybe we did it with smallpox, but beyond that, there may be nothing. So what you would like to understand is, go back and understand, is that what would be or what could be the potential barriers to implementation of a vaccine program for the entire population from the health system side and from the community acceptance side, as well as from the specific vaccine needs. For example, if you were going to use Moderna vaccine or Pfizer vaccine, then how would you do the parts that, the logistics or whatever else would also become part of those barriers. So one could do immediately some research on that part A, which is understanding what could be the delivery or the demand side barriers to a vaccine program for COVID. Very interesting, very important. When you see that, you may also start thinking of solutions. When the actually vaccine starts in the first few months of the vaccine, you would like to measure, are you reaching all the people you want to reach? If you put a project already in place, you could say, how do we have an implementation model? The government will decide on an implementation model. It might say all nurses will do this, all Anganwadi workers will bring people, or all Ashas will bring people to do ANP, etc. So one could think about all those issues, but when they come into place, when the program starts, you start the first part of the program where implementation research is already embedded within the program. If I were the government of India, if I were in the government, if I were advising them, that's what I would tell them, that put that implementation research part of the first 6 months of your implementation, so that what we learn from this, you can implement 6 months later. Over.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. I think that you explained that answer very well. The next question, actually, two or three of us have this question on. There's always been a bit of a confusion, I would say, with different terms used, such as operational research, implementation research, health system research. I mean, these are three commonly used terms, and many of us sometimes get confused between these. So, are these different, or do they look at different components, or maybe could you throw a little bit of light on these different terminologies?
So this terminology is always an issue, isn't it? It's
Right.
always a problem because it it leads to, or unless we get to a stage where we say this is what this means and this is what the other thing means, there is always some confusion. But simply health system research, any research on a system, whether it is for policy, whether it is to understand, it may not necessarily be related only to implementation or improving implementation. So for me, anything to do with the health system, any research, whether what policies does health system make, what should the health policymakers know, how do they actually make decisions, all that is health systems research. It is a very broad area of research that involves the health system. Implementation is usually done by health systems, so implementation research could also be a part of health systems research, but it is a specific, to me it is specific to implementation problems. Now the second thing is operations research. This is a little bit confusing. We used to have this, we didn't have the word implementation research before. We used to call it operations research, or whatever we had
Right.
was called operations research. The way, again, it is not perfect, but the way I have discussed this within various people in WHO and the ones who make definitions, etc., is that usually operations research is more localized. When I now talk of operations research, I would talk about a local problem, a local solution, and very little generalizability. May be generalizable, may not be generalizable. So what it means is I saw resolve the problem that comes in. It's like almost like engineering, right? It's engineering. You see something, you correct it. You see something, you correct it. It's very much similar in method to what I just explained. But the difference between that and what we call implementation research in general would be that can you use the lessons from one project, one district, one sub-district to the rest of the system, rest of the implementation in the state or in the country. So in other words, if there are generalizable implementation lessons that 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 you can take and you can put into place. Tarun, I'm making a presentation. Tarun, I'm in a presentation. Sorry. Yeah. So if you have these issues which are generalizable, I tend to call it implementation research. Otherwise, operations research. So it's a difference between engineering and technology, for example. A
Right.
technology can be implemented elsewhere. A small engineering technician goes and fixes something where there is more localized. That's how I would understand it. But there is no hard and fast rule. You don't quote me that Dr. Rajiv said this, so this is the truth. I don't know. I'm
No,
just making up what I think.
no, no,
I'm
thank you.
sharing.
No, thank you. This is also very important, informative. Another common question from more than one participants is, how important is it to have policymakers or stakeholders, right, in the design and conduct of implementation research?
My answer is absolutely critical. If you do a research, implementation research has two words for me: implementation and research. It must have a team which has two components: researchers and implementers. If you don't have implementers as part of the the team which is going to conduct the implementation research, I think it is useless to do it anyways. That's number one. Number two, the issue of implementation research, if you want it to be the decisions made in implementation to be used elsewhere, you would like to bring in the policymakers from the beginning and be engaged in the research from the beginning and be part of the decisions. So remember when I told you every few months you have a group, of government. These are usually a higher level group, usually not just the implementers, but also the policy people. So they can listen to the data, they can listen to the problems, and then they can think what they do. Usually, you see a NHM director or you see a secretary of health in a state. They all have great ideas, and everybody else says, "Yes, sir, what a great idea." The idea is that they start listening to data and understanding data and then saying, "Oh, I have a great idea." But then they are also challenged by saying, "But sir, we tried this, it didn't work. This is what has happened." So unless there is this interaction with the government, which in most cases is the implementer, it could be also big NGOs. But without that, there is hardly any use of IR,
Right.
at least
Thank
not the
you.
solutions.
Right. Thank you. So I think it's very clear from Dr. Rajiv that stakeholders and policymakers must be there as part of the design and conduct of implementation research. Okay, so there's a question. I'll just read it out. Since iterative design in the implementation research can be time-taking, especially when new problems or issues are found out in the field or from the field, what can be possible flexible quick fixes that can be used to adjust for the reiteration and bring down the time taken?
I don't know. You will have to see. I told you, for example, you give me a problem like COVID implementation research. I told you what you can do in 3 months. So you will have to take each problem as it comes. So if it is a long-standing vexed problem, like it has, you have never been able to implement anything above 20%. In India, for example, let's say anemia prophylaxis. I mean, coverage has never gone above 20-30% for the past 30 years. If you really want to solve that problem, it will take time. And it will take time and it will need. But if there is a new issue like COVID, you
Right.
need a solution for COVID vaccine, not in 3 years, you need it in 6 months, 3 months. Then you will have to adapt your method to say, what can I do now? What can I do with the early implementation? But the fact that it has to be iterative will not go away. You can be iterative in a week, you can be iterative in a month, you can be iterative in 6 months. The fact is that unless you have evidence that something which is a problem, you try to resolve it and it is not resolved, and you keep doing it, what is the big deal about it? How are you going to achieve what you want to achieve? So essentially, iterativeness is a important element of designing a solution. That iterativeness can happen on an hourly basis. That iterativeness can happen on a weekly basis, daily basis, or monthly or yearly basis. But it is important to have it. You need equally then to adapt your data collection. If you want to adapt on a daily basis, you need data on a daily basis to adapt what you are doing. Yeah, you could get COVID vaccine data on a daily basis. There could be a 24/7 cell which is collecting information and providing to a group which is also meeting on a daily basis to decide on yesterday's data to decide what happens today. It could happen. So I don't think by it is a it may be an interesting way to say that, oh, iterativeness takes time. I don't think so. It depends. It depends on how much you believe that it is important to have qualitative and quantitative data to decide what to change in implementation. Otherwise, why change it?
Right. Thank you. And we actually have a related question, I think, but Dr. You have just probably answered it. The question was, for how much duration do we have to wait to see the existing program needs to be modified through using IR, implementation research?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on what data you have on the problems, how fast you collect it. I- Everything is proportional to the question, the resources you put in it to collect the information, and the ability of the decision makers to do it. And it is both qualitative and quantitative. I see a question which people keep asking, is IR qualitative, is IR I don't think that matters. In fact, for me they answer two different questions. So
Right.
imagine, what does qualitative research answer? It basically gives you reasons. It gives you why does something work, why does something not work. At the basic level, that is what it tells you. You need to understand that, but you need to also understand what is happening. What is my intervention doing? What is my implementation doing? That can only come from quantitative data. You can't get it from qualitative data by 20 interviews, that what is your intervention doing. You need a sample. You need to understand what is happening. So usually you have a mix method for implementation research. You have both qualitative and quantitative methods answering different type of questions to be able to go. Usually, now you may come up with this suggestion that you need only quantitative. Maybe, maybe I
Right.
will. We have to look at the question. We have to think about it. Then we decide whether that is the only thing you need. Maybe that is true, but most of the times it won't be one or the other.
Right, right. Thank you. We have a very interesting question. How important is it to include implementation research in academics curriculum, such as in medical colleges, say within the subject of community medicine or something else, especially in
Yeah,
India?
so I I don't know. Again, I'm not an academician, so maybe we should ask people with more academic interest. But anybody who wants to be a program manager, I don't think every doctor wants to be a program manager necessarily. But
Right.
anybody who goes into government service, who is basically becoming on the track to become a CMO or even a senior medical officer at some stage, or even a PHC medical officer, anybody who does PSM or preventive social medicine or community medicine and wants to be engaged with program, I think must understand implementation research. It's the biggest tool you may have in your bag to improve implementation. And I think it is very important part of any person involved with the program. Not all doctors will be involved. You work in a hospital, not necessarily you are not going to do implementation research. But I don't know the answer to that. Would should be discussed with the people who are involved with the academic policy.
Right. Okay. Thank you. We just have two more questions to go, which we have. How important is it to include costing analysis or finance cost benefit or something in implementation research questions?
Yeah, two things about cost. 99%, if you do something, the government will ask you, so what does it cost?
Right.
They will never do something without knowing whether they can, what they should include in the budget. So it's part of the input. So I
Right.
told you there are inputs. So what are the inputs? They need to know, is there additional human resource that we will need? So, for example, is there additional nurse need or additional community worker, or who will be needed? Do I have to give incentives to ASHAs more than that? They want to understand the inputs. Inputs are financial, inputs are human resources, inputs are logistics. What medicines should be I buy? What other supplies would be needed if I make this change? So, costing for me is a part of the inputs that have to be measured. It is not equivalent to a cost benefit or cost effectiveness analysis. Most of the times, I mean, I know people would say very important to do cost effectiveness. I know it's very important, but governments are not interested necessarily only in cost benefit analysis or cost effectiveness analysis. They are more interested in the cost. Then there is also another issue. People generally, I'm only talking practical, okay? I'm not talking about academic health economics. But a health economist usually will give me costs of the program. So it will tell me what does it cost of existing workforce, what time are they spending, what is the PHC building cost, and I would appropriate cost to this. So appropriate costing would include all that. But to tell you the truth, the government has no interest in that. They are only interested in the marginal cost.
Right.
They are only interested in what should I put in my next budget. When I
Right.
do my next budget line, how much extra should I put for these changes? They are not interested in knowing my currently working workforce is working 10 minutes more on this or 20 minutes more on this. It's a great idea to do it, but that's not what I have seen when governments and programs want cost data. They are more interested in the marginal cost data. What is the additional human resource? What is the additional financial resource? What is the additional medicine or things that are not there today that will be needed? Usually they are more interested in that. Not to say that other things are unimportant, but that is my experience so far.
Right. Thank you. And then we have a little general question on, in India, what are the main barriers to perform implementation research? And it's a very general question, but I mean, this is a
Yeah.
question from one of the participants that we have got.
Yeah, I think other people should also say that. I'll just speak for 1 minute and then I'll mute myself so that
Right, sir.
other people can give answers.
Right.
So my sense is it's not just India. I think this is a new area of research. People are still learning how to use this implementation research in helpful ways for programs. We don't have enough capacity, enough understanding of enough type of researchers who understand what they do or have experience of doing this. That's one thing. The second is also that the government may not have that much inclination to conduct this type of research. And if you unfortunately, if you to do a lab research, you can set up your lab, you can get funding, and then you can do something. Don't need the government to come and help you, except somebody giving you the funding. Even for efficacy and effectiveness research, you need some sort of tacit approval from the government that you need. So somebody, ICMR, some ethics group in ICMR, somebody will give you approval to do things, but they don't need to be part of the research. So that is easy. But implementation research requires them to feel that it is important for them. It is important for the National Health Mission to get information. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And usually it is personality based. So if Dr. Bhan would have gone, and as he did, to go and talk to a national mission director or a health secretary, they would say, whatever you say, sir, we will do it, right? On the other hand, if somebody who is less charismatic, less interesting, more than this, they say, who are you? Why are you come here? We don't want this. So you have to create that rapport and that network and that credibility with the government. Not that the governments are not interested. I have worked with states like UP, Haryana, at least those two, I am 100% sure, where they did memoranda of understanding with research groups that can do implementation research because they value it. The national health missions actually valued doing that. Take Vishwajit Kumar in UP. Most of the time government is engaging with them and some others like him to do the research with them. So it is also not just saying that they are not interested, but it is also an art to how to make them interested. So you have to develop those networks within the government to find the Suresh Dalpats in Haryana, to find the right people who may be interested in research, and to go with those people and make first your own groups, your leaders. Your leaders who people will say, oh yeah, this person is from KEM Pune. He's a big professor. He understands. He's been involved. You need those people to be champions, to be able to convince some of the leadership in the government to have interest in implementation research. Over.
Right.
And thank you very much. I will still
you.
be on for a few minutes, and we'll be very happy to, and we'll be delighted to hear from other panelists.
Yeah, please, I would request the other panelists also to please join in this discussion. It's a very interesting discussion that we have. So please, your experiences and any suggestions or comments.
So Dipto, till Rajiv, this is Neeta. Till Rajiv is around, I have a question for him. Rajiv, the teams are supposed to identify questions for implementation research and develop proposals and hopefully, send them for funding. So would you suggest that one of the ways of going about this is they all have local government partners, and you mentioned Haryana, like for the SAS team, and you also mentioned Dr. Dalpat. So to identify the most relevant question, at least for that the SAS team can develop, would it be worthwhile approaching him and then asking him what he should develop in partnership with them? And the same would hold true for the other teams.
I would definitely strongly recommend that you may develop a proposal, you may develop a question, you may develop a very good proposal, but if you haven't worked with the government and it is also their question, then you will find it hard to get them on board or harder to get them on board. Usually they say that at the time of conception, parents are decided at the time of conception. Otherwise, you can be only adopted parents after that. So it's usually good to have at the time of conceiving the ideas and making them into to decide what is the most important question, to have people who are actually struggling with some of those implementation issues with you. They may not know everything, and you don't need to agree with them on everything. But in those discussions that you will have with them, you will probably learn more, and they will learn more. And in the end, they will think it is the joint idea from both them and you. And you have more chances of getting their involvement than not. So you are doing this exercise to have a few of your champions in the government who can then take this and convince others in their own language why this is an important question. Over, Neetaji.
Yeah, thank you. And also, we may think that a certain question is important or program X is important, but for them, they may have another priority at this point.
True, but at the same time, they may also know that this is a priority. So it's what I'm saying is it's a mix. Sometimes if you rely too much on only doing what they want, you may miss important things as well. So it's in that discussion, they may change their priority, right? They may say, okay, yeah, this is also a very big thing. We also want that. So I would consider that both the things from their perspective and from the issue that you are raising and how important it is, a dialogue. It's not a one-way thing that they are telling you what to do or you are telling them what needs to be done. That I think that interaction will bring out the best priorities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neeta ma'am. Would any other panelists like to just say something about this discussion? Okay, Dr. Rajiv, if you don't mind, we just have one question if you would be willing to take.
Sure, I have to leave in 3 minutes. I have the next meeting.
No, sure. Even our session is ending in 3 minutes. Quickly, so there's a question based on your experience. Can you please give an example of a successful implementation research and just mention how it improved implementation actually?
So the thing is, I would leave that to tomorrow when one of the best examples I have will be what will be presented by Sharmila.
Right.
On KMC.
Right.
The other one is the other, I would say, recent best example I have might be discussed by Kazi or mentioned at least by Kazi. I don't know if he has already had I heard him for a moment. Maybe he already had his presentation, but a lot of work that Kazi started, and I was involved with him as well, was on sepsis treatment.
Right.
And I think that, and you've been involved, lots of you. I think KEM has been involved, and so it's in process. It's not that we say this has happened already, but some of those examples are good ones, I would say. To other people will have other examples from our our own experiences. We are now starting another huge area of work on antenatal steroids for pregnant women.
Right.
And knowing that it is effective now,
Right.
we would like to see, it's difficult to implement. So how do you implement it?
Right.
How do you learn to implement it? So I don't know. I mean, if there are very many other examples, there are many of them. There are several in immunization where implementation research has helped people to improve things. I think Cherry is leading from India that whole effort on antenatal care, postnatal care improvement in how to implement ANC, PNC on that collaborative. Others are also involved in this Prerna platform. So there are lots of examples of how has been done and how it has been useful. Unfortunately, it's not that old, the implementation research, and it's still evolving into a I would, as I said earlier, the methods are still not the ways people think about implementation research. I mean, I did 3 rounds in 2015 and to 2017. We did 3 rounds of funding for implementation research. We had $20 million from some donors and even what we funded in these rounds was so different because people had no idea of what, sometimes we were just funding trials just not even very close to what we now understand should be implementation research. Sometimes we were just funding people with $100,000 to just find problems, just finding the solution, finding the problems, what is to be done, etc. So hard to say, but if you want, I can think and ask others and give you a list of good things to read.
Sure. Sure. I think thank you, Dr. Rajiv, for that wonderful and informative presentation and for patiently answering all these different kinds of questions. We hope that you'll be able to catch some of them. We know we have a very busy schedule, but we hope you'll be able to catch some of the other sessions for the next 3 days. But thank you anyways for this session.
Yeah.